welcome back to the Realennials. I'm Pat.
And I'm Ruby.
We're here with a very special guest, my dear Aunt Rosina, Houle, founder of Realennials Links out of Lawrence, Kansas. Thank you so much for joining us today.
It's a pleasure. It's probably one of my most favorite interviews.
No.
Oh, why? Because it's your favorite nephew?
Yes, definitely. Don't tell anybody else.
You guys heard it here first. So, thank you so much for coming out. I really appreciate that. Last minute schedule changed. There's an impending blizzard coming.
Yes.
Yeah, we're glad you made it out here safe.
But we're here to talk about Save Life, and we want to hear about that. How did that come about?
Save Life started in about 2015. As you know, my older sister had a kidney transplant like 4 years ago. She lost the function of that kidney, and so she's been looking for another kidney donor, and specifically a living kidney donor. So I started that business looking for a donor for her, and as we know, she's passed away, and the amount of pain that our family had experienced, I kept it going for the fact that I do not want anyone to have to go through what we went through.
Yeah, I mean, that was an intense, time.
It was.
And so, and Jessie Marie, was her aunt. My aunt, she lived in San Antonio, Texas. Can you talk a little bit about how she first dealt with it when she was younger?
Okay, she was diagnosed when she was 18 with IgA neuropathy. Basically, that's just the cells of the kidneys are deteriorating. So the doctor told her she just exercised, and if she just followed a diet, that she would pretty much prolong the transplant. So she did that until she was 40, and then at the age of 40, it got to the point where she went on dialysis for 2 months, and then we were very fortunate that, my mom at the age of 60 was a match. And Pat, I don't even know if you know that your mom was a match, and they ended up taking grandma because she was a closer match than what your mom was. So they did that. She went through, she had it, she kept the kidney for, it was almost going on 18 years. And she had some problems with the medication that she was, or one of the anti-rejection medications. So she took that, she was having problems with that. They took her off. And then at that point, that's when she lost the second kidney.
Okay. How long did she have the kidney for?
Almost 18 years, which relatively that's longer than the average. Usually they say 10 to 14.
Yeah.
So that was pretty good at that time. Of course, now kidneys can last anywhere between 20 and 30 if you're lucky. I mean, it's just how far advanced that medicine has just worked.
So, as you just mentioned, obviously you had to pass away from that. So, what is the functionality of the business now? What keeps it going? What is the motivation? What are the operations of it?
One of the main ideas why I wanted to start it was because a lot of people don't understand there's a difference between a living donor versus a cadaver donor.
Yeah, that's my question.
Yes, cadaver donors are, when you go, or I guess they just call it registered donor. When you go to the DMV and they ask if you want to be a registered donor, and so you go and then you sign your little name down there, and then when you die, then the hospital, wherever hospital you are, they are with the procurement center. They legally have to call that procurement center within a certain amount of time. So then at that point, then they go ahead and test the organs to make sure. And then you go ahead and if they're good enough, then they go ahead and they find anyone. They do it in three different phrases, but they also have kind of altered that. So first they would go anywhere locally.
Yeah.
If you can't find anywhere locally, then they go to your region. So for us, it would be Missouri, it would be Kansas, and it would be Oklahoma. If you can't find anyone in that region, then that's when you would go to the national list.
That would need the kid.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So you would go ahead and they would do that first. With a living donor, what happens is you would go through all the testing. And the testing usually will take up to anywhere between, it can take anywhere between 2 months up to a year. And so once you go through all the testing, and then if you're a match, then they just schedule. That, you are taking someone, immediately taking someone off the list.
Mhm.
If you receive an organ from a living donor, it lasts longer
Yeah.
than from a cadaver. And then the other part of it is just dialysis cost $50,000, I think, a year.
Oh my
So
gosh.
immediately that is just stopping right there. Dialysis is a lot like cancer. It is very, you're putting poison in your body to get rid of those.
Yeah.
And dialysis also has a lot of very horrific side effects. And one of them being you lose your hair, your memory loss. My sister unfortunately had her almost lost her toes, amputation, because it's very common that happens. There are some people who happen to go through dialysis. There have been some who are on 20 years and don't have a lot of issues. Unfortunately, my sister, every issue there could be, that's what she had. It was a very long and difficult road for her.
So they knew that she had to get a living kidney donor because that's what would stay the longest to like prolong her life, or what was the reason for that instead of a cadaver?
The reason for the living kidney donor is one, now it's usually about 5 to 10 years if you're a cadaver. So apparently we don't have enough people dying. On a living, then everyone who wants to be tested gets tested. So they usually start with the family.
Yeah.
And so we were very fortunate that we knew we would be taking our sister off of that list, and she wouldn't have to go through all that 5 to 10 years waiting.
Oh, wow.
So my mom went through, and she happened to be the closest match to her, and so that's why my mom ended up donating to her. So you're better off getting a living donor for the fact that, okay, we go through all the testing, and then we just set a date, and then we go in. And then like I said, the benefits from that living donor by far outweigh those from a cadaver. Even though when the time comes down to it, you're going to take whatever that you can get.
So what is Save a Life? What is the function after all of this has happened of Save a Life? Or how did Save a Life, how did it start? Did you just decide, okay, I'm going to start this business right now and it's going to help my sister and then other people?
Actually, what happened was back in 2015, we almost lost our sister 5 times. So I promised my mom for Thanksgiving that I would take her to San Antonio. So we fly to San Antonio, we get there, we see my brother-in-law, we see my niece, and then I couldn't find my sister, my mom couldn't find her daughter, and we looked. When we found her, she was so unrecognizable. That's how much this disease has taken from her. She was in a wheelchair. And it just made me mad being there that weekend. And I just thought, why are we not letting people know about living kidney donors? And so truly, I thought about it, set it up, and then when my husband came home, I said, "Hun, you will never guess what I did today." And that's how it was started. And he just said, "Oh, okay." And so from that point, it just kind of went from there. And then when we first started, I did billboards. Basically it was all media. And then after that, when my sister passed away, then the mission kind of changed a little. We went through a lot. It was very devastating, and then we unexpectedly lost her. And from that point, the amount of pain I can never describe. And from that point, I just said, we'll change the mission, and at this point, we will help people try to find a donor, and then we will still promote living donorship. And you'd be surprised how many people do not know about being a living donor.
Okay, so you're spreading awareness to people that can be living donors. Or
both. So we're doing education, and then we're also trying to help people find a living donor. And education. Educate, yeah, just basically that.
To let people know kind of the process.
And on my website, we have a section in there where if you need one, you go and you put your story in there, and then we have your picture, and then we just kind of go from there.
Oh, wow.
What are some of the most common questions that you get about living donation?
A lot of people are afraid that if I give a donor, or if I give a kidney, what's going to happen if I need one down the road? The easy answer for that is if you donate a kidney and you need one later down the road, you bump all the way up to the top.
Oh, really?
Yes. And a lot of people don't think that. A lot of people also think that, okay, I'm fine right now. Because usually most people donate when they're 50-ish, 60. So a lot of people worry about that. And again, my mom is 82. She turned 82 last year in October. And so basically she's gone, she was 60 and now she's 80. She's gone 27 years. And that lady will run circles around everybody. She is amazing. So, and that's just one of the things. There really aren't as many side effects as people would think that there would be.
Of not having that one. Really? Oh, man. I can't imagine how fired up you were probably when you started this, because I mean, all the heartache that you experienced with a sister that was dealing with that much.
What's, I think the most difficult thing is when people will tell you that they'll be tested and then they don't. Because she's living day to day. And to know that it's crazy that people just don't follow through. The other thing that people ask a lot is that transplant hospitals only test and do the transplant. It is up to the family to go and find that living donor. That's the only two things that the transplant hospital does.
Really?
Yes, and so my sister, she was very sick. My brother-in-law, she was on disability at that time, so my brother-in-law was a teacher out in Texas, and so they don't make much. So he was working 2 to 3 jobs, and they were physically, emotionally, and financially exhausted. So who steps up at that point? And so when I seen her, just seeing her at the airport was just devastating. And from that point, now that she passed away, I never want anyone to go through the pain that our family has gone through.
I hope nobody. Oh, well, I hope you're helping. I mean, you're helping people do that. Is there a registry? So, like, if we wanted to go get tested, we could go be on a registry, and then if we match somebody, they would call you and say, "Hey, it's time. It's time."
Well, the only time they would do that, so when you go to the DMV and they put that on there, or now it's so easy with the internet, you can just go on, you can register. So you go and you do that, and then yes, they would. But a lot of people think that I'm a registered donor, and I'm dying, and immediately my organs are going. The organs have to be tested after, just like they do when you're a living donor, except the time is crucial.
Yeah.
Yes. So a kidney, I think you have within 4 hours that it has to be tested and all that and transplanted into another person. So
4 hours?
Yeah, and I think that's what it is, but it's very limited. If you die, if you have Alzheimer's, you cannot donate. If you die alone, you cannot donate an organ, even if it says on your license. So, I mean, it just starts, once you die, the clock starts ticking.
Oh my gosh. If you die alone, what's the reason?
Well,
Because they don't know what's in your system?
No, for the fact that you don't know how long you've been gone. And so immediately your heart stops, the oxygen starts, and then all the organs start to deteriorate. So it's definitely time sensitive. And a lot of people just realize when I die, my organs are automatically going to be donated. And that's not. They have to go through the testing just like they do when you're a living donor.
Holy moly, that's a process.
So,
It is.
so if someone wants to be a living donor, what are some of the hurdles, if any? Can my PCP pull blood samples and test for that, or have to go someplace specific, or is it that you reach out to someone in need of a kidney and then you go through their testing and their doctor, and what are the implications for insurance?
You do it several different ways. The insurance question automatically is if you do not have insurance, you may never have a transplant. The person who is receiving the kidney, their insurance will pay for everything. So in my sister's case, here I'm in Kansas, she's in San Antonio. So what everyone does is they call, with her, I called her transplant hospital. They have someone specifically assigned to her at that time. So I called down there, and everyone starts out with a 30-minute phone interview. You're going over your history, and then you're going over any medications. If you pass that, then what they do is they send you to a specific place in your region where you go and you have blood work done to make sure the blood works are compatible and do that. And then you do a 24-hour urine collection. The only time in my life I wish I was a male, because that is just not as easy as it sounds. So you do that, it's sent back to them, they go over it, check and see if everything's okay. If it is, then you're sent to the next test. You cannot proceed to the next set of tests until you finish this, because it's a very expensive process. So I never made it past the urinalysis. And so then so basically that's just where it stops. But there are a lot of people who call for that 30-minute interview and are automatically, have high blood pressure, diabetes, kidney stones, your kidneys.
Immediately.
Yeah, they're considered disease, and at that point. So immediately at that point, they just kind of tell you. So it can take up to, we had at least 10 people at least tried. And one person took almost a year to do it. So it's not like I need a kidney and then tomorrow we're going to be in the hospital. It's a very long, difficult process.
Goodness gracious.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, we're going to hear more about this.
Yes.
Thank you again so much for coming and letting our listeners hear about what you have to say about what Save Life does. We will be right back after the break.
And we back. And we are back. I'm Ruby.
Okay.
And we're Realennials, and we are here with Pat Spia, actually.
Yes, thank you
Oh
for being here.
Yeah,
So tell us a little bit more about what Save a Life is up to nowadays. I see you on social media going and doing interviews at different places. And what's a big component of what you're doing nowadays? You mentioned education. What does that entail? How do you design that? And how do you go about implementing it?
We definitely rely on a lot of donors. Now what we're doing is, it's actually very exciting. In the first week in April, we're actually going to start doing urinalysis testing, because that's one of the very first things that they do to indicate that usually it's if you have too much protein or if you need to go see a doctor to do a little bit more. So we chose Garden City because we have a lot of Hispanics out there.
Yes.
Unfortunately, we don't always eat the healthiest. We eat a lot of fat and the cheapest. And so diabetic, who do not know that's not a diabetic. And then again, the diet, a lot of tortillas and a lot of beans and like that. So we're going to be doing our first kidney screening out there. And basically, we're kind of just doing the nuts and bolts. You'll do the urine, and then that will be able to tell you if you need to go ahead and proceed to go to the doctor to do a follow-up. You can also do, we're going to do blood pressure. Blood pressure is one of the #1 indicator that there's a problem with your kidneys. Hispanics and African Americans are also very high on the list of people who need a transplant. So we do that. I don't know if you know, March is National Kidney Month.
Did not know that.
Yep.
I didn't know that, which is why I wanted to have you in soon.
Yes.
Yes, and usually I sport orange hair, but I've noticed that as I have become older or more mature, that the orange doesn't take as well. So I'm not spending $60 anymore to have it for a week and a half. So since from March 1st to the end of January, I will always wear something orange every day in honor of my sister.
Your pants are orange.
My pants are orange, yes. So what we're doing is on the 19th, they have Capitol.
March 19th.
Yes, March 19th. They have Kidney Day at the Capitol. So a lot of people in Topeka. I'm sorry, I keep forgetting where we are. So we have 9 people who will be honored. They're either a living kidney donor or they're a recipient, kidney recipient. So they will go to the house in the morning and they will get the most beautiful certificate you will ever see. And so they're introduced to all the house members. Then in the afternoon, what they will do is we will be introduced, or they will be introduced to the Senate members down there. So, and that's pretty neat. But I think it's from 9:30 until 2:30, it's going to, on the second floor of the rotunda, then it's just going to be all kidney awareness stuff. And it really is actually pretty neat. I've met a lot of new people from last year, and then I was
This is something that you arranged? Like that you designed?
Last year when I was invited to go and be part of it, I went there to just do that part. And then we were able to get a picture with the governor at that time, which is exciting for me. So this year, since I'm doing this, now they just put that kind of in my lap and said, hey, we want you to go ahead and take care of this part. Okay. So I put out on social media, anyone in the state of Kansas, if you've had a kidney donor or if you're a recipient, then we want you to come and then we'll go ahead and let you go to the Capitol. So I was kind of limited on the amount of people that I could take, but definitely anyone who wants to come out and support those people, we are more than welcome.
Well, you've had a few notable people, like a Katie basketball player.
Yes, Alonzo Jameson played basketball, and it's actually going on 2 years that he's had his first, had his donor, and he's a big guy. And so he did that, and the guy who happened to be from Wichita saw it on social media and went through the testing process and went through.
He was a recipient of a kidney.
Yes, he was a recipient.
From a stranger that just heard about it?
Mm-hmm. Oh, it was on social media. And with Alonzo, I guess we all know that he's African American. He also had, his mother passed away from him, his dad passed away, and then he has a brother who was also, yes, with that. So, I mean, we have a whole round. What kept his in check was the rigorous practices that they had. And then when he graduated, and that's when his problems had started.
So that sounds to me like it's a little bit of genetics.
It is.
Okay.
It is genetics, and the scary part you have chronic kidney disease. Then you have PKD, which is polycystic. That one is scary. That is one that you definitely inherit. So, if you have that, then you get tested, and then you have that chance of carrying automatically, passing that on to your child. I have a friend of mine who, back in October, just had a kidney transplant. His father, his mother, his sister had died from PKD. He was tested, so when he was married, he and his brother, if they had PKD, they were not going to have children. The testing came back indicating that they were fine. And then now...
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Obviously that you're very religious.
Uh-huh.
How do you feel about genetic altering so that you can control for that before birth?
That aspect of it, I'm not totally sure you would be able to do that in that scenario. It's depending on what we're talking about when we talk about the religious part of it. But when it comes to an illness, I definitely.
So, for example, they would be able to take the DNA from both parents
QDNA
and edit. It's a system called CRISPR, and that's an acronym. I can't tell you exactly what it stands for. We'll put it up on the green screen. But effectively, what it allows them to do is while it's in the embryonic stage, edit out that gene that would cause that disease. And therefore, the parents would still be able to have a biologically child of their own, but science will have intervened.
genetic.
From what I have seen, and then again, lost your mother to cancer, lost grandpa to cancer. In a heartbeat, I'd say do it. There are a lot of kids who are born who have this. A lot of things that people also don't know, depending on your age. So let's say, Patrick, I know you're young. Let's say you had a kidney transplant. there's a good chance that you would probably need another one down the road.
Yeah.
I mean, a kidney transplant usually is not a one and done. Now, if you're older in age, it's probably a one and done. But if you're an infant, if you're 20s, 30s, chances are you will need another one. Now, because of all that, the antibodies are higher, and your chances of getting a second living kidney donor are definitely a lot harder.
Oh, that's why you said the anti-rejection medicine.
Yes.
Because it was starting to not work.
Right, so if you've had a transplant before, if for a female, if she's been pregnant, and then I know there's another one that's in there, so your chances just really kind of go down at that point. But I've also known people who have had 3 and 4 transplants and have done well. How they do that, I don't know.
So how does that work? So there's a list, right, of people that need it. How does someone get 3 or 4 kidney transplants?
That's the good question. Now here, now they have organ allotted, and right now that I know, it's just with livers. So let's take out in Kansas, in Garden City. Okay, the chances of getting people out there, just because it's a small community. So now what they're trying to do is, okay, so Kansas City can now only be allotted 5. Anything beyond that will go to this place. Anyone beyond that will go to this place. Now there's pros and cons to that. Obviously, for those people out in those rural areas, it's a good thing. But for people here in this general area, it's not a good thing, because now instead of helping as many people as you want here, then you can't.
So it's not, maybe I just had never known this, it's not based on proximity, apparently then?
Well, it is at first. So if someone passed away today, then what they would do is they would check somewhere in the local area, because that would make the most sense to do that. Then they would go to your region, which would be, and we're covering a lot of people in Missouri, in Kansas, and then in Oklahoma. Then at that point, they can't find anyone. Actually, in Richmond, Virginia, there is the national database where everything is located in there. And then from that point, they go. The other interesting fact that people don't know is, say we get someone, okay, I have an organ here, it's going to be shipped to us in New York. That team will actually follow that organ all the way from point A to point B.
To make sure they got there.
Well, to make sure they got there, but you would feel more comfortable with the team that you've worked with all the time versus bringing in new people. So they always try to get local, because it just makes more sense to do that.
Are there any incentives to be an organ donor? Is there legally, economically, insurance-wise, is there any laws in place that would provide you paid time off of work, protected, or anything that would just incentivize more people to follow that route and become tested?
And actually there are. If you are a state employee and if you are a federal employee, you get 60 days paid for being off to donate any organ. Now what they're doing is, they just recently passed a law. It's called the Living Donor Act. So now if you become a donor,
The state or federal?
I want to say it's federal, because I mean it's just been all over social media. So now when you do that, if you take off for a job, they cannot let you go. So it'd be like the family FMLA.
Okay.
So you can go donate an organ and still know you'll be safe when you come back, because there have been a lot of people who have lost a job for going and donating an organ. So those are the 3 major benefits right there. And one of the other possibility, one that we can do, is to try to get more employments, a place of employments that they'll offer those, that they'll go ahead and offer that too. And then in other countries, like in the UK, basically you opt out. So everyone is a donor unless you opt out.
Oh, interesting.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
I never realized that.
So they're trying to do that more in other, here in the United States and other places. And so the only reason that, obviously just right there, we've just opened up a whole bunch of new options.
Who's heading those efforts? Are you in conversations with people legislatively who are having those conversations?
I have to be very careful, since I'm incorporated. I have to be very careful at what part in legislation that I can do. So depending on what it is, maybe, but to go, I just have too many friends that I know who are doing that, and it's easier just to go and rely on them. You know, lobbyists are everywhere,
Right.
and so you just hook up with one of them and they do it. But because I'm incorporated, I have to watch what part of that I can do. So
Interesting. Why? And in what way?
and that,
Because
well, just like any other option, if you know I'm going to give you a lot of money, and you know if you know I'm going to vote for you, you're going to want to tell me what I want to hear and donate to me to do that. So it's just basically just not trying to buy people off.
okay.
And it's just one of those things of being in a nonprofit.
I'm interested about what's going on in other countries. Is the death rate for this lower in other countries because you have to opt out and everybody is just automatically considered?
Well, and that's not totally with everyone. So it really depends where you are and how much. I even have other countries that I go with, and their approach is a little bit different than what ours is. But it's just really hard to say. I just know, for instance, the UK is, because I just pay attention a lot to them. I know Canada's kind of the same. So it really depends where in the country that you are. I know a lot of people, you know, it's illegal to pay someone for their organ. And so I get a lot of people who contact me in other countries saying, hey, I'll do that, I really need money. And you just can't do that.
Wow, interesting.
That's the black market.
I actually want to talk a little about that. We will come back right after this break. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back. We are the Realennials on Pat.
I'm Ruby.
And again, we are still here with my aunt Rosina here to talk about Save a Life Inc. out of Lawrence, Kansas, and what she does in her epic fight to help create awareness and to talk about the struggles of kidney disease and the implications for that disease in the family and what has been overlooked societally in terms of what options are for being a living kidney donor. So, what does the future of Save a Life look like?
I hope, right now we're national. I hope we just take it just to a whole nother level. And that may even be joining into some other organizations that already have definitely the more funds than what we have in this little area. And just to get the word out, let people, you know, we need to be talking about this every day. We need to feel comfortable with this conversation.
How do we start those conversations with people? If you hear somebody that says, you know, oh, my mom is sick because of her kidney something, how do you start that conversation? And, you know, bring it up. Maybe it isn't on their radar. How do you start the conversation?
For me, it's just kind of easy because they said when I do the orange hair, that's not me. And
So people are like,
yeah, so people say, yeah, God, your hair is orange, and then you lead right into it. I'm a substitute teacher during the day, and for March, for 30 days, and then kids will tell me, Mrs. Houle, God, you really like orange. So that's easy. And so you start by telling them, and then they don't know. Then you'd be amazed at how many people that are out there. There are like 120,000 people on the registered list. So everyone who needs it. Out of all of those, 100,000 just need a kidney. The kidneys are the #1 organ that is requested. And it's easier than what you would think. Some people, with a lot of the stuff, the billboards, when I did it back then, the radio interviews, the TV interviews at the Capitol, just always being out there. And usually they come to you and ask you, oh, I know someone, and then it just kind of goes, there. The other aspect of it is, talk about it. I usually like to use the winter because there's just probably more accidents that are going to happen during that winter time than it is any other time. So I always say, start having those conversations now. Yeah. Okay, I want to, our other big motto is, Save a Life is not against registered donors. We are just asking you to take it one step further and be tested to be a living kidney donor. And just getting that information out there, saying it's not as bad as what you would think. Last year during March, I was at Lawrence High in Lawrence, and those kids are ready. So we're now trying to hit the high schools, we're now trying to hit the college students to get the younger generation more comfortable into doing it. It's the older generation that fights it.
You know what I'd like to see is free college tuition for all of
That would, yes.
something like that. Is that a possibility?
Yeah,
What is the
that is
future
the
look like?
future.
Where are we at? Is there kidneys being grown in labs yet?
There are, but I have to be honest, between the artificial kidney that you can wear, between growing them. Now, when you think, just a couple years ago, now with the machine that you can use, Realennials, the plastic. You make your own kidney, that machine.
Oh, a 3D printer.
3D
yeah,
printer,
yeah.
right there. And a lot of people, they're trying to do that. It's very complicated for those part of it to do it. So I have heard about this for already on 2019. I've been hearing about it's coming, and I've not seen anything as of yet. So it's I guess giving hope. I have not heard anything being out there, and they say that they're being tested. I don't know how that would work, because when you do dialysis, either you can do it in the center or you can do it at home. If you do it at home, it has to be in a very sterile. So if you have pets, the pets can't go in that room. So now if you're wearing a kidney dialysis machine, I don't know how that would work, because obviously when you go out in the public, you're going to be exposed to so much more than what you are if you're in the center or if you're at home. So I don't know how that will work. I hear about it a lot. I've never seen it as of yet.
And so it sounds like young people are kind of the future. Are schools, do you contact schools, principals? Do you have to contact the school district? What do you do to get into the school to talk to students?
I was very fortunate in the one in Lawrence. I knew a student who was on student council, and he happened to get it in through there. People are very uncomfortable with this conversation, and it is hard to get to go into places that people don't want to hear this part of it. And it's not as easy as what you would think. And it's a shame, because this is an organ that is requested the most.
Why do you think that is? Do you think people are they don't want to face that reality? Or?
Well, it's death.
Yeah.
It's death. And then you think, when you go into being a living donor, there's always a risk in any surgery that you have. But now all of a sudden, it's like you're taking it to another level. So then more has to happen. There's, now they do it laparoscopically. When my mom had it, they actually took out one of her ribs. She was out for 6 weeks. Now they do it laparoscopically, and depending on what job you have surgery 2 weeks later, you're back at work. That's how far we have moved in this process. But people are just afraid of that.
Does that make people more willing to look into it if now technology has advanced to where you're back to work in 2 weeks afterwards?
Well, I think on that point, I don't think people want to be back to work in 2 weeks. I think
They want that free college tuition and they want those 60 days.
We've come a long way. I'll put it out there. Will I ever be out of a job and give up this? No. It's just that. I mean, we have we come from a huge family. We have people in our family who are just afraid. Also, you think diabetes, bam. We know a lot of people with diabetes. High blood pressure, bam. How many obese people do you know? Bam. Okay, we're already stacking the odds against us, or against anyone, really. So there's a whole lot that's going to have to change before we get to the point where maybe it is that opt-out.
Instead of opting in.
Right, instead of opting in.
So you can literally get in trouble for having conversations with legislators?
I can, but to what extent? And basically it just comes down to, you don't want basically, I'm going to cater to you to give you what you want so you can give me, and if I give you a lot of money, then you're gonna change the laws for me. And that's just not how it needs to be set up. You just need to do it for the fact it's just the right thing to do.
So then theoretically you could be in trouble if you wrote as a citizen.
So as a citizen, for sure.
To
then
a legislator and say,
yes,
this is what I do for my job,
mm-hmm.
but I think these are good ideas legislatively that would make sense for our society, that would increase the number of living donors, decrease the number of people who are dying from this disease, increase awareness in schools, middle schools, high schools, colleges, that being an option.
And in some areas in different states, they're very welcome. Kansas is very hard, I will say that. Kansas is extremely hard to get into and to have people change their mind. The flip side to that, last year I met, we have a senator who's out of Dodge City. He needed a kidney and his daughter-in-law donated to him. Wouldn't you think that would be the easiest person? He's in, and you would think he would try to help change those laws. And
who is that?
Senator Bud Estes is out in Dodge City.
Interesting.
And then, last year then I met a lady, one of the House of Representatives. She was in that situation. So right there, we have people who are already in it, and maybe they have, I guess I should say. Maybe they have, and the bill just didn't go very far. Okay. But if we can start getting people, businesses, to say, hey, if you donate, we'll pay you 6 weeks in order to do that. And again, depending on your job, you could be back to work in 2 weeks.
And you can help somebody.
Definitely.
I'm sure people would appreciate that have family members that need a kidney. Mm-hmm. And so they would get an incentive, not double incentive, I get to help my family member, and then I also get paid off for 60 days, and
right.
I can do this.
Literally, you are on borrowed time. And the sad thing about it, I was supposed to see my sister that Christmas, but we had a death, and so my husband and I had to go to Chicago, so I wasn't able to see my sister. She went there. She always loved coming back to Kansas for Christmas. They left on a Thursday. They got home on a Saturday. Sunday they were recouping since my brother-in-law's a teacher. On Monday he had to go back to school. Tuesday my niece and my brother-in-law had to go back to school. Came home, found her dead.
No way.
And you're very susceptible to having heart attacks too, even in dialysis.
At that point in time, how long has she been waiting to?
It would have been 2 years because I started, Save a Life has been since 2015 and she passed away in 2017. So it took those 2 years. I cannot even begin to tell you how to watch a loved one die is the most unbearable pain you will ever witness. And always wonder why. I only needed one kidney. That's all I needed was one kidney, and I couldn't get it.
Gosh, everybody has two.
Mm-hmm. And some people are born with one. It's rare, but it does happen.
They've incentivized, maybe I'm wrong about this, I feel like maybe you posted something about this. They've incentivized networks of if I don't match for my family member, but maybe I match for your family.
Program, yes.
Okay.
That is the only exception that the hospital will find you a kidney. So, and this happened out to a family in Garden City. The sister wasn't a match for her brother. So she said, I'm going to go through the parent program, went through all the testing, and they said, yes, we'll take you. You've passed all the tests. So she actually went to an anonymous person. They just said, we have a kidney for you. We want you to come in. At that point, they will actively start looking for a donor for her brother. Now, at the time, they were all going to meet, but because of just a little bit of complications and stuff like that, as of today, I don't think they've ever met their donor and the other recipient. But yes, it is a paired program, and that would be the only time if you pass, they actively start looking for someone. But some people will just go into a transplant hospital and say, hey, I want to be tested, and you do it. There's also called the procurement centers. Every hospital in the world has a contract with the procurement center. So when you die, they immediately call. Here they have, it's in Missouri, or either Missouri or Kansas, the most amazing place you have ever seen. So you can either contact the procurement center, you can go to a transplant hospital and contact them, you can go to a nephrologist's office and say, hey, I want to be tested, where do I go? So there's a lot of those options out there that you can go and you can do that. But usually, the majority of the time, it's you know someone in need and then you go and you're tested. So even though my sister was in Texas, you could still do that. It would just be a matter when everything came down to it. The last couple of days before the surgery, I would go down there, they do complete the rest of the testing, and then there we are. So even you don't have to live in the same state.
You just have to be matched.
Right.
What I was referring to is, I think it's all, maybe this is just a one-off type of thing. I thought it was something that legislatively they're trying to incentivize. It was like if I couldn't match for a family member, but I was a good candidate, basically like an NBA trade, basically, where like my kidney would go off to this family, their kid, family member of their kidney.
Yes, and that's actually happened. Yeah,
Seattle, and then that's in Seattle, that kidney would come to my family.
There has been some where they've set off a chain of like 20 people. So yes, that can happen. Does it happen often enough? No, it doesn't. But it can happen. And I think it was a year or 2 years ago, KU Med had a big chain reaction on that part of it. So it is, yes, it is possible.
That would be a good like initiative to try to start.
And you know, now that the other big thing is, I think it's St. Luke's, that if one of their employees want to donate, they will pay them in order to do that. And that's been, I mean, they've had several of those people. I mean, a lot are on in all the sites that I'm on. There are a lot of medical people who will do that, who will donate to a patient, or a lot of teachers too, who will do that. So it's truly amazing.
That's so beautiful that
It
people
is.
would do that and give a part of themselves as a gift.
All right, well, thank you again so much for coming and sharing this information with people. I think that probably I would guess 90 to 95% of the people who listen to us have not heard this information before, so I'm very glad that we had the opportunity to share this with them. Where can people find you out online? What's the website?
It's www.savealifeks.org.
And you said April 19th?
No, April 9th. The first,
March.
March. Oh, I'm sorry.
March.
March 19th, yes, is here in Topeka. The first weekend in April will be out in Garden City.
Okay, awesome. So, and last words for someone who didn't know this information, considering a living donor, what's their next steps if they want to get more information?
Well, they can contact me. If they have any questions, we have living donors who, if you have any questions, they're there. If you have a recipient, they're there. So any question you have, you just come to me, I will get you what you need to know.
Okay, well, thank you again so much for coming. We will wrap this up. We are the Realennials. Be sure to check us out on all our social. Everything's linked below, including Rosina's information. So thanks again for tuning in. I'm Pat, and we'll see you guys next time.